Jeff Slauson here from 19 News Now at the 19 News Digital Desk. The decision of whether or not to ban 2 books for Mentor schools. That is currently on the topic and is going to be discussed at the Mentor Board of Education meeting that's currently being held right now. A fairly decent crowd for this. Want to explain the 2 books here. So right now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Change and Empire of Storms. Right now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Change is available for students in kindergarten to 5th grade, according to the author's website. The book is made up of quote-unquote mini biographies of children around the world who didn't wait until they were grown to speak up for change and make a difference. The questions around this, according to the Board of Education members, they say that the book raises concerns for parents and community members. The other book, called Empire of Storms, is challenged by former elementary school teachers. They say that this book depicts multiple sex acts in graphic detail. The board said that it is not appropriate from 9th to 12th graders. So let's bring you now live to the Mentor School Board meeting, who will be discussing the potential banning of these 2 books.
Whether it be an item on the agenda or another topic. To participate in the hearing of the public section, interested speakers must sign up prior to the start of the meeting. Sign-ups are available online through the school district's website or on-site prior to 7 p.m. You will be called to the microphone when it is your turn to speak, and at that time we ask that you please state your name and address questions to the board president. Each person may speak only once per segment, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. The purpose of the hearing of the public is for our community members to address the board. The board continues to welcome feedback from the community as an important component to conducting business. This is an information gathering opportunity for the board and administration so that we can work to best serve our community. If at the end of the public participation we do not make a statement, please know this does not demonstrate a lack of care for comments shared by our community. Rather, we want to be thoughtful in our approach, and we will provide a response in a timely manner when appropriate. This meeting is being shown live and can be viewed on demand on our YouTube channel, Cardinal TV Mentor Ohio. Thank you. And at this time, we have district highlights and recognitions.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade. Tonight we are recognizing several students for their outstanding achievements. I'd like to invite Mr. Hammond to the podium to begin our presentations this evening.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Heath, and Mr. Wade. This evening it gives me great pleasure to recognize our grade level spelling bee champions based on our district competition that culminated on January 22nd, 2024. These students excelled at the building level by winning their respective spell downs before moving on to the district competition. What I'm going to do is read what they earned and their name, what school they're from. Students, when I call your name off, if you would come up to me, I'm going to shake your hand and hand you your certificate. You'll walk across the stage and shake the hands of the board members, and then you can return to your seat. Okay? 5th grade champion, Mackenzie Archner, Ridge Elementary. Sixth grade runner-up, Sebastian Gill, Memorial. Sebastian's mom is here for him. Sixth grade champion, Logan Grassi, Shore. Seventh grade runner-up, Eliana Bradford from Shore. Seventh grade champion, Dylan Fedor, Memorial. I'll be making trips to schools tomorrow. 8th grade runner-up, Joseph Marchaza, Memorial. 4th grade champion and district runner-up, Olivia Johns, Orchard Hollow Elementary. And lastly, our 8th grade champion, district champion, and Lake County runner-up, Tyler Granito from Shore Elementary. Thank you, Mr. Heath.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, at this time I would like to invite Mr. Crow to the podium for the high school recognitions this evening.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Heath and Mr. Wade, I'm extremely excited to be here this evening to recognize 7 Mentor High School students who qualified as National Merit finalists or National Merit commended students this year. In addition, now I'm going to keep talking afterwards, talk about our speech and debate team that qualified for states, and then we're going to recognize some of our very talented artists as well. Going back to our National Merit finalists and National Merit commended students, their effort, hard work, and academic excellence should be celebrated and something our students, families, and school system can all take great pride in. Just some basic background information on the National Merit Program. Of the 1.5 million nationwide 11th grade PSAT test takers from the 2022-2023 school year, about 50,000 with the highest scores qualify for recognition in the National Merit Scholarship Program. In September, students with these high scores were notified by their schools that they have qualified as either a commended student or a semifinalist. That means our students here tonight all had scores that were in the top 3% nationally. Of the 50,000 students, approximately 34,000 nationwide are recognized as commended students. Commended students are named on the basis of a nationally applied selection score index that may vary from year to year. Of that 50,000, approximately 16,000 students are notified they've qualified as semifinalists. That means our students here tonight are in the top 1% nationally who took the PSAT test last school year. To ensure that academically talented students from all parts of the United States are included in this group, semifinalists are designated on a state-by-state basis. Semifinalists are the highest scoring entrants in each state. Very proud to tell you that in February, all of our semifinalists were notified they had advanced to the finalist standings. With this recognition, they're also eligible for the National Merit Scholarship, Corporate Scholarship, and college-sponsored merit-based scholarship as well. At this time, I want to introduce our students. Students, please approach the podium and shake hands and stand to the right for a picture after everyone has been introduced. And normally we ask everyone to kind of hold their applause, but I love what Mr. Hammond did, so please keep applauding our students as I say their names. So first, our National Merit commended students. And before I go, I can tell you that we have a band concert right now, and so like a lot of our high-achieving students, they're in so many different things. So if anyone's not here, that means they're probably at our band concert. And I can tell you that I'm sure some of our students, they're going to shake hands and they're going to dart over to the Fine Arts Center, because I know I am after I'm done presenting tonight as well. So our National Merit commended students, Ben Goya. Drew Parker. And Olivia Sachs. And now for our National Merit finalists. Lauren Banginter. Abby Horvath. Hari Krishna Patel. and Michael Suhar. And if we can get one more round of applause and congratulations to all of our National Merit finalists and commended students. Also excited to be here to recognize our speech and debate students that qualified for the state competition. But I saw both their coaches are in attendance today. If the coaches are able to come to the podium. Congratulations. So our head coach is Amy Roediger, and our assistant coach is Tracy Coleman. So at this time, we're going to recognize our speech and debate team and their accomplishments of qualifying and competing at the state tournament. Would our state qualifiers, Ellie Coleman and Casey Gray, and obviously their coaches, please join me at the podium to say, we're going to say a few words about their accomplishments this season. Ellie and Casey. First, we're going to talk about Ellie. Ellie had just an incredible season as a freshman and an incredible tournament. Ellie advanced to the semifinal round of her event and finished in around 22nd place out of 94 students statewide. Congratulations to Ellie. Casey had a fantastic season and an extremely strong January and February. Casey competed in 6 rounds at states, and in addition to competing at the state tournament, Casey also qualified for the national tournament, and this June, Casey will be competing in the NSDA national tournament. Congratulations to Ellie and Casey. Next, I'd like to congratulate and recognize many of our talented artists at Mentor High School. Rather than me speaking about our artists and telling you how amazing they are, I'd like to invite 2 of our fine art teachers, Mrs. Kane and Mrs. Smith, to the podium to say a few words and some background information about the different awards, as well as a fantastic slideshow, because if we're going to talk about art, we should probably look at what the art pieces are. So at this time, Mrs. Kane and Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. March is actually Youth Art Month, among other things, so we're proud to be here to celebrate our artists. We hope that you also enjoy the small pieces of artwork you can take to your office from the students that are here tonight. We're going to start with art awards. We have local, state, and national recognized students here tonight. Yes, a lot of them are actually in the music program, so they're at the concert right now, but we're going to recognize the ones who can be here. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go through the awards. I'll have Mrs. Smith help me, and then we can have the students come up. So the first art awards, we want to recognize students who are part of the Northeast Region Ohio Art Education Association Youth Art Month. We had 2 students, Sarah Smith and Sijin Thomas, who were recognized at Case Western Reserve this month. And another student, Ray Bingham, actually won the Youth Art Month flag graphic contest for the entire state of Ohio. We can clap. Our next set of awards are the PTA Reflections Contest Awards winners. And I'll have Mrs. Smith announce those names.
There are several, so we're going to hold our applause to the end so everyone can hear everyone's names. But congratulations, the PTA Reflections Contest, we had several people whose art went on to the state level, including Helena Cherian, Colin Fellenstein, Alexis Godek, Leah Grazaday, Romy Heaver, Abby Huffnagel, Cherry Lee, Landon Opatrny, Alejandro Ortiz, Michaela Parkinson, Niyati Patel, Lily Pollock, Noel Sluga, Molly Tenney, Addie Valeri, and Yaprak Yilmaz. Congratulations.
I'd like to recognize the winners of the National Art Honor Society juried exhibition. Please understand that out of thousands and thousands of artists over the state of Ohio, they are very selective and only select about 180. Out of that 180, we have 4 students from Mentor High School representing. Hallie Cook, which incredibly, she's been in this show 2 years in a row, and that's kind of a big deal. Lauren Savetikin, Abby Harps, and Sarah Pritchard. And then there's just one more cool thing I'm going to tell you about. It's the 5th annual Juried High School Art Exhibition at Otterbein University. So the college invites high school students across the state to enter their exhibition. Again, it's a juried show, so to be juried into that show, it's kind of a big deal. We had 2 students from Mentor High School, Lauren Savetikin and Carl Gracie, who were actually part of that exhibition. Thank you. If we could have the students, the art students, come on up. So if we called your name, just come on up. We'll shake your hand, and if you can be recognized by the board.
I know that was a lot of recognition, so at this time we'll take a real quick recess. If those individuals that are here for the recognitions only, you are able to leave at this time. If you would like to stick around, you are more than welcome, but we'll give you a couple of minutes here to kind of disperse before we jump into the business part of our meeting.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. Any discussion? Mr. Wade, please call the roll.
Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Ms. Apple.
Yes.
Ms. Justin.
Yes.
Ms. Trasna.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Carries 5-0.
Next, we have hearing of the public on agenda items only.
First speaker is Aaron Zindar from 7154 Erie Drive in Mentor. Thank you. Our next speaker would be Mike Williams.
Dear Mr. Wade, Mr. Heath, Ms. Cook, and the rest of the school board members, I'm here tonight to ask you all to take a serious look at the book right now that is in our elementary school libraries for access to kindergartner through 5th grade. This nonfiction book encourages and promotes political activism. This book is not factual, it is ideologically biased, and is not age appropriate. Is this what we want our children to be reading and learning in Mentor schools? For starters, Greta Thunberg is held up as someone to emulate in this book. She has even admitted that her climate activism crusade has robbed her of her childhood. Almost all of her and her advisors' climate predictions have proven to be false. She and they have had to readjust their doom and gloom scenarios numerous times over the last several years because they did not fit the factual data. Greta claims our world is dying and our future is dying. There is absolutely no evidence to support this outrageous claim. If you happen to see Greta on TV, she seems like a very unhappy person. Is this how you wish to scare our K through 5th grader students? The book also glorifies trans activist Jazz Jennings. According to this book, doctors thought she, in quotes, was a male at birth, but then she said she was a girl. Are you really going to tell us that our children and our doctors can't tell the difference between male and female at birth? Sorry. Doctors just don't make these types of mistakes. They don't. This is patently absurd, and you know it. Are you really going to promote lies to remain in our elementary school libraries? If you do, you're also promoting and agreeing with false statements that our children can transition between genders at will. This is the most despicable lie. How can we expect kindergartners and 5th graders to decide? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amanda Young from 8172 Concord Drive, Mentor. I don't see Ms. Young. Our next speaker is Lindsay Wall from 8232 Midland Road.
Good evening, board members, President Cook, Mr. Heath, Mr. Wade. Again, we have 2 books being challenged tonight, and I would like to actually ask a few questions, not just start making remarks about my own thoughts on these books, but perhaps I will be able to understand a little bit more about why we're here again. We were here 2 years ago. Some of the things I say tonight, I may have said 2 years ago. But I would like to know why there's 2 board members and a church in Willoughby that found these books so horrible and awful and inappropriate that they felt the need to put out press releases and canvass our entire Mentor Schools district with flyers and alert the public that there were inappropriate books being handed out to minors. Did the challengers read these books in full? Do they understand the definition of context? Do they know what pandering obscenity to minors actually means? It seems we actually have 2 board members who may be guilty of just that. Not our superintendent, not our teachers. Because we have 2 board members who picked out not just the title of these books, highlighted them on social media, noted the page numbers, highlighted the passages that they claim to be inappropriate, so inappropriate they shouldn't be in the schools, and shared images of these, quote, inappropriate passages on their social media pages for anyone and everyone to see them. If you ask me, sure sounds like they're pandering obscenity to minors. My next question is this: if we have an 18-year-old student that wants to check out a book in the library, because we do, we have 18-year-olds, and I'm sure we even have some 19-year-olds in our school, they're adults. Yes, they can go to the public library, sure. But our library should be diverse and include material for all, including those 18 and 19-year-olds. What happens if we have a student that does go to the actual public library and checks out one of these books that you guys claim to be so far inappropriate it shouldn't be in their school library, but they bring it to school? Are they going to get in trouble for having inappropriate material in the school? How does that work? Our librarians, our teachers, and the board are in charge of making decisions for all students. And what we're doing is not for all. Worry about your own kids.
Our next speaker is Ian Anderson from 5951 Center Street.
Okay, hello everyone. Been a little bit since I've been here. Was hoping this would kind of fade into oblivion, but that's not going to happen, so here we go. Across the country, we're seeing books being banned. One thing I know that it's only a certain group of people that seem to have a problem with are LGBTQ people, people of color, immigrants coming from different countries. Banning books because they have a reference to a child being transgender is what is wrong with our society. Because, in fact, we do have transgender students in our school district. And the book that's controversial actually is a bunch of children that have not everyday typical experiences. And so what happens is they're trying to explain to everybody so we don't have to have meetings like this, and we don't have children that are in the LGBTQ community. We've had 2 recent, this does get to book banning, and let me explain why. I'll circle back around. We've had 2 students, one in Oklahoma, one in the UK, that were murdered by their peers in their school that they went to school with because of the negative rhetoric that's coming from the top down. It's coming from our state houses. This rhetoric is being repeated. It's being repeated by 2 school board members. that is apparently okay to involve our churches and our schools, which they're not. We have bigger problems in this school that we are wasting our time on this fake outrage. We could actually be fixing school sizes, the classroom sizes. We could be fixing the bullying, bathroom issues, possibly busing problems that happen in the school. Maybe we should be looking out for that. Focus on our own kids. Because I'll tell you what, if something happens to my daughter, and this rhetoric is to blame, which it is. We had a student within this past week unalive themselves. And they're part of the LGBTQ community. And a week after, we had 2 school board members that seemed fit to blast the Mentor community with anti-trans things. This book is representative of trans people. So what's the problem? Trans people exist. There's not 2 sides to this. This is real, and then this is you guys believing it's not because you're ignorant. Read the book. You could benefit from the book. Everybody that doesn't understand, there's not 2 sides to this. And I've seen the speeches at the churches. It's sick. You're going to get one of our kids killed. You should be ashamed of yourselves, the 2 of you. That's it.
Ma'am, you must sit down.
Well, you guys should interrupt her when she's accusing
Ma'am,
people of
you are interrupting
the
the business meeting. You are interrupting the business meeting. Please have some decorum.
I thought we were supposed to be respectful.
That's it. That's your last warning.
Okay, thank you.
I would just remind everybody that we have a number of speakers tonight, so if we, at the end of each speaker, clap to that extent, we're going to be here for an extremely long time, folks. So I would just ask, for the sake of moving the meeting along, that we let the speaker speak, and then we get on to the next speaker, please. So our next speaker is Rebecca Black from 684 Michael Drive, Mentor, Ohio.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I'm a proud mother of 3 children, one who's graduated from the district, and I have a 2nd and 4th grader that are here with me tonight because this was so important. I've never come to one of these meetings, but this was important. We should not be banning books, okay? I'm here this evening to speak about rights being taken away, the right to check out a book, or the rights and professional obligations educators have in offering our students expansive collections of information. Established in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the freedom to access information is being challenged here at Mentor by a few special interest-motivated members of the Board of Education. Their metrics in challenging these titles in question are highly subjective based on their personal beliefs. This authoritarian style threatens the fabric of the community and lessens the quality of our children's education. We should be celebrating a child's enthusiasm for books, not taking books away. Offering such titles provides access to a broader worldview and the opportunity to talk about wonderfully diverse or challenging topics with your children. I respect your choice not to check out a book or your choice to restrict what your children check out. Let's not be authoritarian. But let's preserve mine, my children's, and the community's rights to check out a book you may not agree with. I also would like to read a little part of the author's notes in this book that my family and I do own. It says, although adults often look to young people with hope, it isn't the sole responsibility of children to solve the world's problems. We must all work together, young and old, to create the world in which we want to live. Thank you.
From 6958 North Meadow.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I come here as a follower of Christ and a concerned father of a son and daughter in the Mentor School District. Today we are speaking on whether or not books like Right Now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Change, are suitable for our children. One of the stories in the book mentions a Jazz Jennings, a transgender activist, who the author states when she was born, the doctors thought she was a boy. It happens sometimes. Jazz is a girl. Call her she. The issue with this statement is it's claimed to be a fact. Fact is truth-based. Here's one. 2 + 2 = 4, correct? 2 + 2 does not equal 6, nor does it equal 7, not even sometimes. Truth is the truth, and it is subjective, not objective. Am I a 34-year-old male? Can I identify as 65 and retire? Collect Social Security? Of course not, because age, just like gender, is objective and not subjective. The God we pledged allegiance to this flag to had this to say in Genesis 1:27. God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them male and female. Just as a person born with XX chromosomes is female, and one born with XY is male. That is the truth, even if you can't handle it. Our schools are meant to be a place for our children to be educated and not indoctrinated. In Proverbs 22:6, it states, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Early stages of a child's mind forms their habits and perspectives. It is not loving to create these delusions in place of reality. You are setting our kids up for failure. It is more loving to train a child up in the truth so that when they go about this world, they can see themselves through. If a parent wants to raise their child up in these delusions, that is up to them. They will have to answer to God on why they perverted that child's mind. However, you do not have the right to pervert my child's mind, or any other children's for that matter. As adults and parents, it is our job to stand up and protect the next generation coming up and see them through, so that not to condemn them. These kids deserve to know that God loves them. And in closing, I say these things out of love and not hate for any party involved. In John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believed in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Romans 5:8, "But God commendeth his love to us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." In Romans 3:10, it is written, "There is none righteous, no, not one." And what do we all deserve for this unrighteousness? Well, in Romans 6:23, it states, "For the wages of sin is death, and the gift of God is eternal life." I'm telling you, leave our kids alone. Go back to teaching objective truths and put an end to these delusions. Thank you.
From 6260 for Wood Road.
Good evening. I'm not up here to talk about specific challenging, but I would like some clarification on the book challenge process. I did attempt to get clarification from each board member 2 weeks ago via email. I received responses back from 3. One only responded to 1 of 4 questions. I had 2 responded fully. Sorry. My apologies. So in regards to the policy on challenging books, why do you believe book or content challenges exist as part of board policy? What is the purpose of this board policy? And as a board member, do you feel that if a decision is made to remove a book or materials from school, it is banning the book or material? Or is it seen as a secondary vetting process for things that may have been unknown or not realized about a book or materials at the time they were brought in? If we're going to argue over book challenges, perhaps the argument lies with the existence of the policy itself. Why would our board stand for a policy that bans books? My suspicion is because it's not banning, rather secondary vetting. Interestingly, the Mentor Public Library also offers book challenges, but calls it reconsideration. Is this another board allowing for the potential of book banning? I don't think so. I think if we had an additional notification process, like a content flag, maybe we would not see so many challenges. In regards to the book right now, I don't have anything specifically to say about that book, but if there had been a flagging of content in place, perhaps that parent may not have let that book come home. And second to that, I would like to say that as a child, or as a parent of a child in elementary school, I do not receive the notification of library books for 6 hours after my child takes a book out. It's consistent. I've looked back. It's never earlier. It's 6 hours. I want to understand what the hesitation or why it takes so long to receive that. And that's it.
Our next speaker is Jacqueline McCormick from 9765 Bridgeview Trail.
Here we are again debating appropriate books for minor students. After books like Heather Has Two Mommies, A Boy Named Queen, Colin Kaepernick, and Tango Makes Three have already been placed in our elementary schools. It's no surprise that another book-pushing political ideology is put in the hands of elementary students and recommended by the woke superintendent to stay. Every month, your board meetings are like an ad for homeschooling and private schooling as you all debate what is and is not appropriate for minor students. Local private schools must love what you're doing since they continue to take your students, and it's been said that private schooling and homeschooling is on the rise in our district while our enrollment is dropping. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why. How about you leave the political ideology to the parents and focus on what people are actually sending their kids to you for, education, not indoctrination. Mrs. Cook, as Chardon School speech pathologist, would you read this to all your elementary students and would you send them home with this book to work on for the week? I think Chardon parents may want to know your history with voting for political ideology in schools is not so good. So far you have voted for transphobia, deal with it, and be a gender transcender to stay in our middle schools, which states if you believe there are two genders, you are transphobic. Colin Kaepernick, pro-BLM and indoctrination, and you voted in support of all K-5 books being put in the classrooms that push political ideology during silent reading time so parents don't even know what their kids are reading. You also supported retaining The Bluest Eye in October, which features a storyline about a pedophile where a father repeatedly molests his daughter in graphic detail depicting multiple sexual acts. Mrs. Jessling, you are a previous Mentor teacher, and you also voted with Mrs. Cook. It is repulsive that people employed by public school systems who are trusted with minor children agree with this indoctrination and sexualization of our students. It is people like you that give teachers a bad look. The fact that district employees on the Support Public Education private page are targeting parents and staff members who disagree with this book is not only a violation of policy but is ethically wrong. They are violating FERPA by trying to have speakers talk about students, which is really a new low. It's clear that some of you have an agenda, from hiring extreme leftist school board candidates with no experience to be in elementary classrooms, to the Mentor Teachers Association endorsing leftist school board candidates, and one self-proclaimed pagan witch, to placing inappropriate books in front of minor students without their parents' permission. It's clear what you're doing. We will have a very big anti-levy campaign when you ask for double the money in the near future. That's if you get the 4 votes needed to place it on the ballot. At this point, I sure hope you don't. In reference to the conversation you're planning to have about class sizes at the end of the meeting, just keep going down the path you're going on, and the problem will work itself out as more will leave our district. Thank you.
From 7582 Brainerd Court.
Good evening, Superintendent Heath, Mr. Wade, members of the board. My name is Eli Pacheco, and I'm a sophomore here at the high school. After listening to and attending these board meetings, I've heard a fair share of discussion around book banning. As a student, nothing makes me more upset than hearing that some parents and board members would like to strip us of educational material. I'm in vehement opposition to book bannings, as they do more harm to students than good. I've also found great irony in people reading passages of these books at board meetings because the audience they are reading these books to includes students like me, the very people they don't want reading these passages. Furthermore, I have found book banning to be extremely politically charged, especially in the case of one of the books being discussed today. That book, Right Now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Change, has been challenged for a plethora of reasons. These reasons include the false idea children will become political activists after reading this book, and discussion over issues such as immigration law, Middle Eastern conflict, the Taliban, climate change, and transgenderism. These issues are brought up through famous young activists who, not to mention, are all the ages of children that would be reading this book and are not explained in detail. Furthermore, no issue brought up in this book is false or giving kids false ideas. These are real-world problems and situations that have happened, and these are real, award-winning child activists who have advocated for these ideas. This book is not telling kids to become political activists. This book, in addition to simply being a composition of biographies, tells kids to advocate for what they believe in, and that they too can have a voice. Despite that, people still want this book banned because, quote, our district should focus on academics and promoting a healthy learning environment free from the stress, anxiety, and weight of the world. By banning this book, the board would be taking academic material away from the classroom. As I said before, issues discussed in the book are all facts and are or will affect the kids reading this book. So while these issues are serious, that's exactly why kids should know about them. As a politically interested young person myself, I know why it is important to be knowledgeable about world issues, especially at a young age. Because if not, sooner rather than later, children will be directly faced with serious issues and will be completely unprepared to deal with them. If the board bans a book like this, I have serious questions about other books that could be banned too. Could a book such as Anne Frank's Diary be banned for being too stressful for our children? A book on a politician such as Abraham Lincoln for his political opinions? Or a book about Martin Luther King for his political and social activism? The answer to these questions should be no. So for those who believe this book should be banned, please ask yourselves, do you only want it banned because you personally disagree with the ideas being advocated for by award-winning child activists? Or is it because you think children in our district should not know about or advocate for real-world problems at all? Either way, the board has no excuse to ban this book. Thank you.
Ms. Cook, Mr. Heath, Mr. Wade, and members of the board, good evening. Last month, I emailed all of you several research articles concerning our students' mental health and their physical well-being. Two of the issues in particular pose a significant threat to our students. One is excessive cell phone use, and the other is the consumption of adult-only literary materials. Thankfully, to a reasonable extent, the board has addressed the cell phone use by our students at and in school. However, I do not understand why the majority on this board is reluctant to protect our young people from what many would agree are adult-only books. We can debate what is proper until the cows come home, but I would bet none of you would be entirely comfortable reading some of the experts heard at these board meetings to your parents. Psychology Today has posted many articles on the web that are data-driven and make it clear our young people's minds are permanently harmed by the consumption of these types of adult materials. This is fact, this is science. The damage done by these types of materials is a matter of science and research, if you care to look. Personally, I don't believe these materials belong in the Mentor schools. That said, if these materials are kept at the very minimum, this board must implement an opt-in program, meaning before a student has the opportunity of accessing these controversial materials, their parent or guardian must be given prior written consent. We all have a God-given right to respectfully voice our opinion in discourse. I'm not condemning anybody for their politically or personal held beliefs or ideology. However, I believe a lot of people in the city are frustrated with what looks like our school board taking its marching orders from the left-leaning political groups, Defense of Democracy, and support for Mentor Public Education. It is their mission to displace right-leaning school board members with the election of those from the ideological political left. Both left-leaning organizations have individuals that either work for the Mentor schools or sit on this school board. Their influence on matters such as this is disproportional and opposite to what most people in Mentor want and expect from our city schools. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Our next speaker is John Sanford from 7537 Parker Drive.
Good evening. What a fascinating process this is. I'm just amazed at what you all are subjected to. I have great respect for the fact that you maintain your sanity, at least I hope you do. So we have here a process, obviously, where a lot of people have a lot of feelings about it. I've shared with you my thoughts already by email of the need for critical thinking, for maintaining objectivity, for not allowing any one particular subjective value to take over. But what I'm really amazed at again is how we as an audience are allowing our emotions when our own personal subjective values are challenged, and then lambasting others. So I really invite folks to take a really good deep breath. Listen to the young man that was here speaking he's the consumer that we're trying to protect or empower or whatever it is we think we want to do. But really pay attention to yourself and realize that what we're arguing about here is our personal feelings that are being challenged. And that has no place in the critical thinking in determining what is good for the schools at large, where we have to appeal to every child. We can't say to this child, we don't believe your issue is real. We can't say to this child, we don't believe your race values is a value. We must all, regardless of our own religious beliefs, whether you are, as somebody said, a pagan or a Christian, it doesn't really matter. What is important is that we as a group stop taking our personal values cudgel and beating the heck out of our board members. What is important is that we, as a group, take the time to value each other and say, you know what? I am one person. I am not a representative of God's will or Allah's will or any other Abrahamic or other belief system. What is important is that we as a group can say with critical thought and respect for each other, respect for all others, and stop this book banning. Never, ever, ever in the history of people have those who wanted to stop access to information and values turned out to be the good people. Ever.
Good evening, Mr. Heath, Mr. Wade, and ladies of the board. I would like to speak about the two book challenges, Empire of Storms in the high school, and right now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Change in the elementary schools. I am one of many concerned citizens who believe that these two books are not appropriate for a school library, and I ask that these be removed to make room for more educational worthy selections. I do not believe in banning books. I value freedom of speech, and I also value protecting the innocence of children. For the teachers and parents who approve of these books, no one is stopping you from obtaining these at our local public library or the bookstores. But there is a significant amount of people in our community who do believe that these controversial books should not have a home in our schools. This doesn't mean it's book banning. Our students should have access to great books that will educate and or entertain them without the risk of causing trauma, distorting their moral compass, or causing confusion from misinformation and outright lies, as are found in the Right Now book. That book tells young kids that boys can be girls and that we are killing the planet. Neither of these things is actually true. Why is it that we can make schools peanut-free for the handful of kids who have allergies to peanuts and not give the same type of courtesy to those who want a porn-free school library? Many kids who are okay with peanuts who are not allergic, they're deprived of their PB&J sandwiches at school to accommodate the minority of those with allergies. But we do not insist upon having peanuts and peanut butter in school and then just casually tell the students with allergies, oh, just don't eat that. Make sure your kids don't eat that. This is the same kind of thing as people telling parents, oh, just tell your kids not to read that book. The point for the peanuts and the pornography is the same. The school grounds should be a safe place where there is no chance of a dangerous food item or an inappropriate book falling into the wrong hands, so to speak. For the non-allergy kids, there is peanut butter at home. And for those parents who want their kids to read smut, that should be relegated to the home as well. Schools should be safe for all students. Finally, when certain people go out of their way to work very hard to make sure that kids have access to books, like Empire of Storms, why are people surprised and upset that they're compared to groomers? One of the things that groomers do is to provide minors with sexually explicit material. Groomers are not a friend of parents either. So what are parents supposed to think is going on at the school? Teachers, board members, and school administrators should be protecting students and ensuring that our schools are safe. And they are not safe with these kind of books. There's no harm in removing those things and letting, if you want access to it, get it outside of school. It's not hurting anybody. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Bill King from 8050 Harbor Creek.
Hi, good evening. I'm a citizen, and I love books. I mean, you read books, you don't ban books. I find it hard to believe that in 2024, we're discussing banning books. These are public schools. These are not religious schools. Religious schools can have all the religion you like, okay? But not everybody thinks like you. And this, we do not live in a society where, like in your religious, it's your way or the highway. Well, that's not the way it is in public. Public is accepting of all. And books provide information. And when you have, the more information you have, the less fear you have. And I believe that most of our problems come from fear of the unknown. And so our obligation is to progress and to give more information. Believe it or not, there are people that have been throughout history that identify as a sex other than the way they were born. It's just recently they were allowed to speak of it. And why is that? Because we have more information. We have been allowed to talk about it. We have not squelched it. And the only thing I can think of is the last person that I remember banning books are dictators and autocrats because they're afraid of information. They want to control the dialogue. Stalin banned books. We are the United States of America. We welcome others. We welcome information. We embrace others. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jennifer Alad from 7260 Reynolds Road.
You guys can fill out a form to speak like everybody else did. All of you who are snickering over there when people are mentioning God.
Can you please address the board?
Yeah, I'm going to address the board. I definitely am, absolutely. Less than half of these students in this school district are proficient in math, yet you want to push this type of literature to kids. I don't want to hear sexuality and kids in the same sentence ever again. No child is gay. None. I don't care what you say. I don't care what any of you say. Sexuality in children should never, ever. I was exposed, no, and before any of you radicals out here laugh, I was exposed to sex. Listen to me. I was exposed to sex at 5 years old when I was molested in my own bed. And do you know what happened to me? You especially, because you're pushing these books. You're helping. I've seen your post on Facebook. Yes, and I went to school with your son. Do you want to know what happened to me being exposed? No, stop. I'm talking. Do you know what happened to me being exposed to sex at 5 years old? I was addicted to drugs. I went to prison. Oh, yeah? Okay, there's children. There's children. My children are in this school. Can you stop the time until they calm down? Okay, so I have 2 children.
Sorry, please pause the time. We have a speaker. Let's please give her our attention, and please continue to address the president.
Thank God I turned my life completely around. I am a great mother today. My oldest graduated from Mentor High School, summa cum laude. He's at the University of Cincinnati. His third year in is being a mechanical engineer student. My second child is in kindergarten. Jazz Jennings, really? Jazz Jennings? Here, I want to play a clip for you, for the board. Do you think that this is appropriate? Never mind that our law states that we parents have parental rights in education. That's a law. And I don't want this book in my kids' school. If these people want to go get their kid a book, go ahead. Here, I want you to hear Jazz Jennings, who Jazz Jennings is. Cover your kids' ears.
I have woken Jazz out of a dead sleep and taken the dilator and put the lubrication on it and said, here, you take this and you put it in your vagina, if not I will.
See, this one. And you want it in the book. You can't handle it there? Not in the book. You can't, I'm not addressing you. You want to talk outside, we can. All right, so anyways, we don't need this in our schools. We don't need it in our schools when our kids are 50% not efficient and not proficient in math and in English. We need to get education back into the schools and teach them the proper subjects to go in advance and become productive members of society and productive adults. The end.
Good evening. As a homeschool mom and a taxpayer, I have every right to know what goes on within the school district. Although my children may not physically attend a school, they are allowed to attend school functions and play sports within the district. Therefore, I have the right to speak up what goes on in the schools, should they ever have to attend the schools in their future. I have a say as to where almost 65% of our tax dollars go. It shouldn't go to the garbage we constantly have to go up against, such as sexual explicit books, some sadly featuring multiple molestations of minor children, indoctrination, and political ideology. It's not banning. Contrary to what some district employees and board members want to call it in hopes of the silencing of others and the pushback, it's vetting. So something that should be done to ensure age-appropriate material for minor students. When I attended school many years ago, we never had teachers speak about political ideologies as part of our curriculum. Nowadays, it seems like anything goes, and the Mentor School District has done away with morals and ethics and brought into classroom activism, political activists as employees, indoctrination, and rated our materials. Since people like to bring up the Bible may include sexual content, but it does not compare to the sexually explicit books you are putting in front of children, like some that depict fathers graphically raping children over and over again. Also, you can check out the Hindu and Islam Bible, but you can't check out the Holy Bible. It is flagged to only be available in the library. How does that make sense? And that seems like an agenda to me. To the 3 board members and superintendent who are okay with this stuff being in our schools, your ignorance and agenda will cause future Liberty to fail again. You will have no one else to blame but yourselves. You are harming children by causing parents to pull their students from the district. I assure you, this view is the majority. The same majority who voted, rose into the board in November. The majority, while they may be fearful of speaking up since some of your employees will create TikToks about or label them as extreme, which also violates multiple policies, will surely not support a levy. They will use that in their voice to continue to vote down the future additional fund levies you may have. And people wonder why homeschool numbers across the United States and in Ohio and in Mentor continue to climb. Well, people will choose to homeschool over indoctrination, homeschool over having to be a part of the system with sexually explicit materials, grooming minors, homeschool for the innocence of our children, and homeschooling to maintain your parental rights and religious beliefs. What happened to setting standards, having morals and ethics? When did having no standards become the standard? Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Andrea Bliss, and I am the parent of 2 students in the district at the elementary and middle school levels. I'd like to start by saying that when I saw the agenda for tonight's meeting, I was incredibly pleased to see that Mr. Heath is going to be discussing class sizes. I know this issue has been brought up by other parents in the past, and that it continues to be a concern amongst those of us who have students attending Mentor schools. My youngest child is currently in 5th grade at Bellflower and is in a class of 28 students. From what I've been hearing, this is not outside of the norm for the upper elementary grades across the district right now. I can tell you that not just the students, but also the teachers have a hard time flourishing in that environment. I adore my kid's teacher. She does an amazing job, and I can tell that she cares deeply about each of her students. I can also tell that she worries that she's not able to give each student the time and attention that they may need to reach their full potential. I can tell that she feels guilty that she can't help the students who still have learning gaps from having to attend school remotely during some of their most formative school years. And those students seem to be the rule, not the exception. In a class with 28 students, everyone is impacted, not just the kids who are struggling, not just the staff who are responsible for those students, everyone. I understand that this is not an easily solved issue, and one that would likely take some serious budget shuffling to improve. I also understand that this may be something that this may not be something that can be quickly fixed. I want to let you know that I am one of many parents who greatly appreciate you taking the time to focus on something that will actually have a major impact on our students. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the book challenges. As you know, I do love literature, despite my feeling that these challenges are a distraction from the bigger issues within our district. So please let me just say, there is nothing age inappropriate about teaching our children about activism, teaching them that they have a voice, that they can stand up for what they believe and help make their world a better, safer, kinder, and more loving place. There is nothing age inappropriate about teaching our children that there are people in this world who are different from them. The only controversy that I can see about this book lies in the intentions of the people trying to remove it from our schools. Using fear and intolerance as a means to limit or control other people, that is what I find to be age inappropriate. That is the lesson that I do not want my children to learn. Thank you.
Brady. Yes.
Okay, hey you guys. Some tough acts to follow here. But my name is Brady, and I'm a freshman at the high school. And I heard there are a few books up for banning. And when I saw one of them was Right Now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Changes, I felt it was important for me to speak up since I'm being represented in this book. I'm transgender, and my community has been under attack for a few years now. So I feel it's important to speak up when you see wrong being done. And let me tell you, banning this book is wrong. I was young when I transitioned, and this book would have been a great to have in this library I went to school at, but it wasn't in the school I used to attend. The reason for that is that it was a private Catholic school, not a public one, like we are in today. With that being said, we shouldn't be banning any books at our public schools since it's for everyone. I stand in front of this school board as one of the few out trans kids in this district. I am real, my existence is not up for debate, but I find myself having to come here for several years now to let you know we are here, we exist, and we aren't going anywhere. There aren't two sides to this conversation. Trans people are real in your everyday life, so it confuses me as to why anyone would want to ban such a book. Transgender adults start out as transgender kids, so why not have a book for kids? Gender-expansive people are born that way, so reading a book about who you are should be a positive thing for a child, but you want to make it a negative thing. I'm proud of who I am, and I hope other trans kids get to read this book and get something positive out of it. A lot of trans kids have parents who are having a hard time accepting their child for who they are. So adults could also benefit from reading this book. Yes, even school board members too. The fact that some of you want to ban it says everything about the people who are pushing this through our schools. We obviously need more education on the topic, not less. Thank you.
Good evening. I've been attending or watching school board meetings for a little over a year now, and I'm very pleased to say that I consistently feel proud of this board for maintaining their focus on making the best decisions on behalf of the district and the students who attend our schools. Genuinely, thank you all for all the wonderful work you do. This has not always been easy considering the coordinated and concerted efforts of some community members and, disappointingly, now some board members to waste valuable board time and resources on culture war-driven topics like we have tonight in the form of book bans. To be clear, those speaking up to remove books from Mentor school libraries do not speak for the majority of the community. Many of us trust in the educated experts who diligently review the contents of our libraries and allow their training and the best interest of all students to drive their decision making. There are already policies in place to allow parents to monitor what their children check out to read, which gives parents the chance to decide what their children read without interfering with other parents' rights to decide what is best for their children. But then I think both the people pushing for book bans and the board members who are driving their attendance at this meeting know that this policy exists. If a parent has concerns about what their child is reading, by all means, they can and should take steps to monitor the materials their children check out. That being said, those same parents do not have the authority to decide what is best for the full community. I do not want untrained laymen and politically motivated individuals deciding what materials will be available for my children to read when they are lucky enough to be of age to attend Mentor schools. They're young now. I genuinely can't wait for my children to be Cardinals, by the way. I'm very proud of this district. These book banning conversations are repetitive and a blatant waste of time and resources. This is especially true when we have education critical discussions such as large class sizes happening tonight. This unnecessary discussion also comes when only 2 weeks ago we had a student make a shooting threat, which highlights that one of the top concerns that the board should have is how to best maintain the safety and security of the district and its students. When we have parents concerning themselves more with book bans and other culture war nonsense, instead of ensuring that their children are not threatening the safety of students and district employees, the board's responsibility becomes to ensure that the district has well thought out responses in place to address such threats. I know the board wants to focus on pressing issues such as class sizes, safety, and meeting the educational and fiscal goals of the district instead of divisive topics. Hopefully, logical heads will prevail to keep the board focused on what really matters.
Ian Fiorelli from 7570 Manor Court.
Thank you. First, I just want to say a super quick thank you to Mrs. Payne and Mr. Heath for getting the school police officer jobs to go out to the sheriff's department if they aren't filled by the MPD. I'm glad to see that we're moving in the right direction to protect all of the schools. On the agenda item of challenging books, the Mentor Public Schools offer many ways to tailor a child's education to their specific needs. IEPs, 504 plans, gifted plans, iReady diagnostics, etc. These are all beneficial and a sign of the fantastic resources that kids and teachers enjoy through the Mentor Public Schools. So why should it be any different to want to tailor a child's reading selections to their needs? I will tell you from personal experience with my daughters how important this is. I received a phone call just today from the amazing gifted teacher at Bellflower, Mrs. McLaughlin, to ask for guidance with a book situation with my 5th grader. My daughter reads several grades above her age, but emotionally she's still a 5th grader and one who is very sensitive to scary or upsetting subjects. She earned a token for the new book vending machine, and Mrs. McLaughlin was concerned about her having a good experience selecting a book that would be a good fit for her. The school actually wanted my input on books that the school would specifically purchase just to put in the vending machine for my daughter. This is going above and beyond, and I was blown away by that gesture. This is not the first time the teachers and I have had to work out accommodations for my daughter regarding books that were not a good fit because heavy subjects cause her anxiety. It is highly insulting when some fellow parents in this community downplay the need for books to be tailored to every child's needs, or call it theatrics when parents want to have some say into what is available to or appropriate for their children. Every family would benefit, and teachers may have less to handle if
So that's a little bit about me. But I didn't prepare anything, but and this is the first time I've came to a meeting like this, but I just think it's really important that our children are not subjected to these types of books. I know you guys are all irritated I said that, but unfortunately it's just not right, especially minors with sexual explicit books, being exposed to that. You know, whatever they want to read outside of school, that's fine. We're not trying to ban any book. We just don't want it in the schools. School is for math, science, English, and yes, history. I don't mind that my children learn about that kind of stuff, but I don't like how the book is saying that it's that the world is dying, and you know, that is, as far as if you want to be trans, that's fine with me. That's not my business. But as far as that goes, I feel like that's something that I can explain to my children. The school doesn't need to explain that to them. And you know, and especially like my kids are going to be going to high school as well in Mentor, and I don't want them reading about sex and sexual situations. I think it's wrong. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Terry Conti, 7565 Lakeshore Boulevard. Let's see, Terry, Megan Shodig, 8151 Buckboard Lane.
I feel like I walked into the wrong party here tonight, but good evening, President Cook, Mr. Heath, Mr. Wade, members of the board. My name is Megan Shaning. I have 2 children at Hopkins and 1 at Memorial, which are 2 of the 12 non-peanut-free schools in Mentor. While I don't get up at board meetings and speak very often, which I'm reminded as of why tonight, many of you have seen my face before, as I give a lot of my time volunteering in this district. My comments have been the same words I've spoken many times, and I'm getting frustrated that they're falling on deaf ears. There are things actually occurring in our Mentor schools, yet most seem more concerned about books and bathrooms. We currently have 29 prepubescent tweens in each of our 5th grade classes at Hopkins, with many grades having high numbers not far behind our 5th graders. If you've never been around a gaggle of 5th grade boys, let me tell you, there is far more psychological damage being done to these children being shoved in these classrooms with kids who haven't learned the art of hygiene than a book that no one even knew about until it went viral on Facebook. Our kids deserve better. Our teachers definitely deserve better. Research proves we should be doing better. It's time to start putting some focus on things that will actually benefit our children and not our egos. I started speaking up about this topic 7 years ago when my first child was in kindergarten at Hopkins. The same words. Not much has changed. A lot of broken promises told with redistricting, and I keep being told, quote, we're watching the numbers. Enough talk, it's time for action. You're worried about math scores? What affects that more? A class of almost 30 or a book none of them have ever read? I don't want to leave our children alone. I don't have a 5th grader this year, but I care about my school. I care about my district, and most of all, I care about all children. Thank you for your time.
Melanie Majakis, 5850 Bree Lane.
Good evening. I thought you forgot about me, Mr. Wade. I'm speaking tonight on the book challenges. The rationale that's being used for these attempts to ban books is that we need to protect children from trauma and from heavy topics. It's interesting to me then that the violence that we see in some books is not a concern if people are truly worried about protecting kids. In fact, one supporter of these challenges commented that violence just wasn't the same thing, and it was too hard to identify compared to sexual content. So if we're concerned about trauma and the trauma that kids face in school, I want to share a story about that. When my daughter was 6, she was absolutely terrified by her first intruder drill at Orchard Hollow, to the point of having nightmares for weeks afterwards. This was 20 years ago. Hopefully they're being done differently now, but it was very, very bad at the time, and it left a permanent effect on her. Fast forward 12 years, she's a student at Ohio State, when one morning I start to get texts from the OSU Emergency Alert Service that say, "Run, hide, fight, active shooter reported on campus," over and over. The location of the intruder was the building where I knew my daughter had class at that time. I tried frantically to call her and to text her for what seemed like an eternity. She did not respond. I have never felt so frightened in my life as I did during those endless minutes of silence. Finally, after what seemed like forever, I heard back from her, and she was okay. Well, the intruder died that day. It was not a mass casualty event, for which I'm thankful, but also furious that anyone ever has to experience this. And I cannot begin to fathom the terror of parents and students in the dozens of school massacres our country has experienced. Like my daughter 12 years earlier, that incident left a permanent effect on me. That's trauma. It's continued trauma being inflicted upon an entire generation of children and their families. Studies show that intruder drills and school shooting threats significantly increase feelings of anxiety and fear in children. And yet I'm not hearing people coming to these meetings to talk about these events. I'm not hearing people coming to talk about the trauma that is caused by threats of school shootings, even as a joke. Joking is a form of desensitization, and desensitization is a trauma response. But we've normalized violence in our society to the point where that barely even raises an eyebrow. If people were truly concerned about how trauma affects kids and how heavy issues affect kids, and truly worried about their safety and well-being in school, we'd be spending this time discussing safety upgrades to protect our kids. We'd be talking about how the same people who are pushing these book bans didn't support the permanent improvement levy that would have provided funding to help make our schools safer. But it's not actually about our kids' well-being, and it never was. Thank you.
Christy Bella Holder, 7570 Delilah Drive.
Good evening. Tonight I'll be speaking on the agenda item regarding the book challenges. I'm the parent of 2 elementary age students currently attending Mentor Public Schools, and I appreciate that we parents and caregivers have so many ways to receive info on and to give input into our child's education. Classroom book lists, library book checkout notification options, conferences, online communication tools, classroom newsletters, and so on. Not to mention actual education professionals qualified to review and curate book collections and learning materials. I also know and appreciate that if I ever have questions or wish to discuss my children's learning experience, I'm more than welcome to do so with their teachers or admin. That's part of my role and responsibility as a parent. What is not my role and responsibility? Demanding a say in any other student's learning experience, including what they read. So I ask you to keep the books. Let parents and caregivers decide whether or not to allow their own children to read them. Now to address the specific issues cited by the opposition to the book titled right now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Change. Challenging a book because it acknowledges the existence of those whose existence and stories they wish to deny or hide. That of a well-known and loved transgender girl. Of a young person passionate about addressing the climate crisis. Of a child surviving an attack from the Taliban and going on to win a Nobel Peace Prize. Of a small child who wanted the Pope to know what it feels like to be an immigrant in a new country. Are their existences and their stories inappropriate? No. What's inappropriate is expecting a public institution of learning to say that they are. Calling their stories too heavy for elementary age students to process doesn't exactly hold up, given that those very same students have to process and participate in active shooter drills at their schools. Now that is heavy. I contend that the stories of the kids in Right Now can help students find their voice, enhance empathy, help them understand the world they are inhabiting and inheriting, all in addition to being inspirational, of course. The challengers of this book, or anyone really, can disagree and take actions to prevent their own children from reading the book, but they absolutely do not have the right to make it so that my child cannot see the stories of the young people in this book represented at their school. Keep the books, and please, let's get back to focusing on real issues, such as school safety or class sizes. For example, my fourth graders class is now 26 kids, which is less than ideal, but obviously still not the largest elementary class in this district. You know, real issues that matter and make a difference to this district, its students, its teachers, and its staff. You know, the real reasons we should all be here tonight. Thank you.
Next, we have the superintendent's report and recommendations.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start my comments this evening, as I've done a lot here recently, with a couple of transportation updates. First, quick reminder to all of our parents. Please remember to complete the annual update and answer the questions regarding transportation. As a reminder, we are requiring all students in grades 9 through 12 to opt into transportation for the 24-25 school year. And for students in grades 6 or K through 8, we are asking families to opt out of transportation if they know they will not be needing a bus for next year. Our transportation department now has the maps built in the brand new routing system that will be implemented at the beginning of next school year. And we need accurate information on who needs transportation to and from school in order to make our routes more timely and efficient. We're sending out those reminders on a weekly basis, so please try to get that done here for us soon. We would certainly appreciate that. On Monday, March 4th, Dr. Joe Glavin and I were able to attend a press conference where Governor Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor John Husted announced the awarding of the Career Technical Education Equipment Grants to school districts and career centers around the state. We are excited to share with our community that we have secured a little more than $2.2 million to update our equipment and renovate some spaces in our high school for the Career Academy initiatives that I announced in the State of the Schools address a few weeks ago. We are working with our operations department now to outline the scope of the work and put an implementation plan together for these CTE programs. Our grant focused on six different programs: culinary, digital media, construction, information technology, cybersecurity, and aviation. We will be updating our equipment in our family and consumer science labs and our construction labs, as well as outfitting our IT and aviation academies to provide our students with the items they need to learn the skills necessary for those in-demand career fields. We look forward to sharing more details with you as these plans are finalized. I know we have some discussions planned for this evening regarding our instructional, supplemental, and library materials policies. So I've spent a number of hours working through the capabilities of our software systems and our procedures for checking out materials that I have shared with our board members. I'm looking forward to coming to some consensus on those language changes and on the development of procedures that will allow individual parents to have full control over what their own children access in our libraries. Last month, we had a lot of conversation around our cell phone policies. I would like to report that the enforcement of our current policy is working well so far. We have taken our handbook language that we used as our administrative guidelines, and we've implemented that across our middle schools and elementary schools, as well as what's taking place at the high school. As we've gone through that policy language review, we have identified that we will need to adjust a few things in the policy to address what we currently are doing in our middle schools and elementary schools, because the language doesn't quite align. Once we get a feel from our middle schools and elementary schools of where that policy implementation needs to take place, and we get their feedback, we will present some language updates for that entire policy. I also look forward to sharing the administrative guidelines that are developed that are very, very closely aligned to what we already currently have in our school handbooks. We'll give you another update as we get into that next month as well. Since the PI levy failure in November, our district administrative team has spent a portion of each of our weekly meetings reviewing ways to cut over $5 million out of our budgets to meet Mr. Wade's goals and assumptions in our 5-year forecast. Through these discussions, we have cut nearly $4 million from our capital improvement plans, our safety upgrades, and our department budgets. Over the last 2 weeks, I've spent time meeting with our department coordinators and our building principals to find additional cost-saving measures or alternative revenue sources to reduce the final $1.2 million we still need to meet our goals. These have been outstanding conversations with our administrators, and I'm very thankful for their creative thoughts and ideas to reduce spending with as little impact on student learning and class sizes as possible. We've decided on some smaller items, like not adding new mulch to our elementary playgrounds this year, since we already meet and exceed the minimum amount of mulch needed for student safety. You wouldn't think it would be a whole lot, but there's a $25,000 savings just with that. We've identified some bigger ticket items like computer programs and assessments that we may have used in the past, but may not need moving forward. We've also discussed increasing revenue sources through advertising, pay-to-participate fees, and facility rentals. Mr. Wade and I are going to be having some final meetings here in the next 2 weeks to identify the exact items we will consider to try and meet the 5-year forecast. And finally, we are making significant progress on our strategic planning process that we will be completing here this spring. We are working on the final draft of the community survey right now after receiving feedback from each of our board members. We are hoping that survey will be deployed within the next couple of weeks, so please be on the lookout for that. We also have had our first couple of meetings with our facilitators from the Learner-Centered Collaborative. We're going to be finalizing our guiding coalition group that will serve as the steering committee for our strategic plan here sometime before spring break. That group will work closely with the facilitators on the 4 in-person meeting dates that they will be here in the district conducting interviews with literally hundreds of teachers, administrators, support staff, community members, business and industry partners, and most importantly, with our students. Each of our board members have submitted lists of names of community members and business leaders that they feel would be great representatives to help drive the strategic plan. So we're looking forward to reaching out to those individuals here soon to tap into their areas of expertise and to share their thoughts and ideas with us. The process is going to be fairly intensive in the months of April and May, and with the hopes of finalizing the 3 main deliverables of a portrait of a graduate, a set of goals and action steps, and a scorecard of measurable outcomes during the month of June to be ready for board approval in July and implementation with our entire school district in August. I want to thank our board members for all of their insights and help with this process already, and look forward to this meaningful work ahead of us. And I do have more comments on class sizes when we get to the new business. I promise, Megan, I'm sorry.
Madam President, may I ask a question? Mr. Heath, do we have plans to, I know we talked in previous meetings about deepening community engagement, and we kind of talked through ways of doing that. And it sounds like the strategic planning process is a great jumping off point. So do we have plans to kind of extend some of that, some of the practices we're using for strategic plans?
Yeah, so our current strategic plan has 4 pillars attached to it. School safety is one, academics is one, resources is one, and community engagement is another. Within our community engagement pillar, we're hoping to kind of expand how we do that here moving forward. We're in the process now of trying to take the State of the Schools address on the road, so to speak. We've got one tomorrow night, hoping to get something set up at the Senior Center and with Rotary here soon as well. So those are some starters, but we also want to make sure we continue to engage in community conversations around some of those goals and action steps that are going to be coming out of that strategic plan here in the future.
That's great. I'm really hoping our community, will half the room is left, takes advantage of those community engagement sessions, because there are lots of ways to interact with Mr. Heath and his team and our schools beyond just the board meetings. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I have the following recommendations listed under the consent agenda and recommend approval of items 7A1 through 7A3.
Second. Mr. Wade, please call the roll. Need a full question, but I was just wondering if we could pull off A3, given that I'm sitting on the Better Schools Foundation. I know in the past we have voted, whoever has been sitting on the Better Schools Foundation has voted, but I feel like because our policy states in our bylaws to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, I probably should abstain on that vote. So I was wondering if we could just pull that one off, so I don't have to abstain on everything.
So let me do this. Again, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I have the following recommendations listed under the consent agenda and recommend approval of items 7A1 and 7A2.
Second. Mr. Wade, please call the roll.
So are we getting rid of the initial motion? Second.
Yes, I think we have a second. How do we need to, we can do the same, right? Whoever's motion is second, we can do it again.
It doesn't matter, I just want to make sure. So we're going to go A1 to A2, kind of pull, everyone's okay with going off the initial
Yes.
motion, and then just making sure.
Do we?
We were, Ms. Jessling has moved and Ms. Payne second to A1 to A2. So, any further discussion? Sorry. Ms. Jessling.
Yes.
Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Ms. Apple. Ms. Marchaga.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I have the following recommendations listed under the consent agenda and recommend approval of item 7A3.
Any discussion? Let's call the roll.
Ms. Jessling.
Yes.
Ms. Apple. Ms. Marchaga.
Yes.
Ms. Payne.
Abstain?
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I am recommending approval of the frontline renewal agreement.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Ms. Jessling.
Yes.
Ms. Apple. Ms. Marchaga.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of the Securely Classroom subscription renewal.
Second. Any discussion? Is securely spelled correctly? Yeah, second. discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessley?
Yes.
Ms. Alba?
Yes.
Ms. Marchaga?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
We should have that conversation with security in the future. Luckily, they've left. Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of the resolution ranking the top 3 firms that responded to the district's request for qualifications for professional design services and authorizing the treasurer to enter into contract negotiations with the firm most qualified.
Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Alba?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Jesslyn?
Yes.
Ms. Marchaga?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of agenda item C1 related to certified personnel and C2 through C4, all related to human resource matters.
Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Jesslyn?
Yes.
Ms. Alba?
Yes.
Ms. Marchaga?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
This concludes my portion of tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Next, we have the Board of Education report and recommendations. And the first item under board business is the first reading of the Mentor Board of Education Neola policies. And because this is a first reading, no vote is necessary. Any discussion? Okay, the second item under board business is the second reading and approval of the Mentor Board of Education Neola policies. Do I have a motion? So moved. Any discussion? Mr. Wade, please call the roll.
Ms. Marchaga?
Yes.
Ms. Jesslyn?
Yes.
Ms. Alba? Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next, we have the legislative report. Ms. Marchaga.
Thank you. I will try to be quick. I know this has been a late night already. So again, in my legislative reports, I'm really just trying to report on things that have been moving in the last month since our previous board meeting. So for starters, the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, they've got some proposed rules open for public comment. You can do those on their website. And the State Board of Education still has the Ohio Teacher of the Year nominations open until March 31st. So if there's any special teacher out there you'd like to nominate, you still have a couple weeks to do so. As far as State House updates, we've got a House session coming up on April 10th, and the last Senate session was held in February on the 28th, where the Senate Education Committee met, so there was some movement on some of the bills that will impact us, so I'll try to go over those quickly. The first up is Senate Bill 17. This is one that I mentioned last time. This one can move more quickly, which was to incorporate free market capitalism content into the high school financial literacy curriculum, which is the course where they teach you how to manage your checkbook and open a bank account, etc. And they want to incorporate 10 different concepts about capitalism into that course. The Senate approved the House version of this bill in February, and it was sent to Governor DeWine for his signature back on March 6th. He's got 10 days to sign off on that. If he doesn't, it becomes law. Senate Bill 104, that one saw some movement as well. This one's to amend the sections of the Ohio Revised Code regarding the College Credit Plus program, so this one most definitely will affect us. It would revise some operations and actually got some amendments added to it. One is that they added a secondary enrollment date of November 1st, and I assume this is to increase accessibility and enrollment to the program because an audit was done on the program previously, which found that the students who would most benefit from that program weren't actually enrolling, so we're trying to increase enrollment and accessibility there. Other amendments including eliminating the bill's provisions regarding open source materials and removing language that would have required school districts and institutions of higher education to split the student textbook cost if that was taken out. This passed the Senate and it was introduced into the House on March 4th, so we'll keep an eye on that one. There are lots more, but I'm going to cover the highlights. Senate Bill 168 is to amend the Ohio Revised Code with regard to education regulation reform. This one lowers existing requirements for advanced advanced educator licenses and removes mandatory state-prescribed evaluation systems for teacher performance, and expands schools' ability to employ unlicensed people as teachers. This has passed the Senate and it's in the House currently, where it's had its first committee hearing in February at the end of the month. All right, let's keep moving forward. I did report on it last time. House Bill 27. This is to require state institutions of higher education to provide financial cost and aid disclosure forms, and it's got an appropriations bit in there that basically there are capital appropriations and reappropriations for the biennium ending June 30th. This will impact some funding with regard to the Ohio School Building Assistance Fund to the tune of $600 million. So it's pretty significant. This one was amended and passed by the Senate. The bill now goes back to the House for concurrence, so we'll see where that one goes. Also important to note that the General Assembly has a joint committee on property tax review that I reported on last meeting. They had their third meeting, and this time around they went ahead and they heard some just some testimony from invited folks only, and they compared Ohio's property tax structure with some other states. And this is really the place, where they're trying to study the impact of bills like House Bill 344,